Okay, I'm Jackie. I do speaking. I mean, I've spoke a couple times. I love the travel thing. That is such a nice benefit. I'm going to the Dominican Republic as a result in like 2 weeks to speak to keynote Pi Caribbean. So I'm really excited about that. And I just had a baby, which is in the back with my husband. And she's coming with me. It's the whole time. The whole family is coming with me to a talk. Well, I guess you can call today. It's the second time the whole family is going to be coming with me to a talk. But I reached out after finding out this was happening because besides talking, I do a lot of organizing, and I've been on the talk review committees a lot. And I wanted to talk about what the reviewers look for in their talks. First, I love this tweet by Jessica McKellar. She's been a powerhouse in the Python community and has literally just hounded women to submit, and as a result has directly driven up the number of women speakers at PyCon, which has been amazing, from 1% in 2011 to 40% in 2016. And so after you get done today and you submit your first CFPs and you end up talking, it's really important for you to continue, for those underrepresented in tech, to reach out and explicitly get them and encourage them to submit. Because this is a process. Getting people, encouraging them to submit their first CFP is a process that works. So right now I'm a co-chair for PyCon, the talk selection committee, and I'm also a chair on one of the SciPy committees. And SciPy currently has their CFP open. So when you submit to a conference, each conference has different processes by which they go over the talks they receive. So a very small conference, which has their CFP open. Okay, so the Data Intelligence Conference is a local conference, which is hosted at my employer, Capital One. It's on machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's it's small and scrappy on the organizational side. I think last year we took in proposals via Google Form. They end up in a spreadsheet. Then there's like 6 of us to like go through all of those and decide who makes it in, who doesn't. One of the processes by which we do that is basically a -1, 1, 1 scale. So -1 is a talk that we don't think should be in this conference, 0 is indifferent, and 1 is this should really be in. And then all the reviewers go through all the talks and give it a score, and then they're scaled. You know, the bottom ones drop off, they're automatically rejected, and then the top ones are sort of figured out as far as like who ends up making it, who ends up getting rejected. Now, that's really important when you have, just to keep this in consideration, when you have a smaller conference, it's easier to get in, I think, but the reviewers are mentally tired because they're forced to go through every single talk. And so you really want to be clear, and you really want to make sure that your description, like that first sentence, don't be cute about it. That first sentence tells exactly what your talk is about, because you might end up in a situation where they're trying to sort through 60 talks and trying to find 15. So just keep that in mind as far as like the how you might write your proposal. So PyCon's a little bit different. PyCon this year, I think we received 670 or 690 talks. And we have different levels of the review process. The first, and also we have, I think the lowest talks, don't quote me on this, but I think the lowest talks, not lowest as in quality, but lowest as in number of reviewers, received at least 9 eyes on it, because we have a whole set of reviewers. So it's pretty fair, I think, in the review process. The first thing we do is go through this process on all the talks. And just in case you can't see it in the back, basically we make sure that the proposal follows PyCon's code of conduct. It's clearly written and articulate, has a thorough and achievable outline, has a coherent subject, is about the Python ecosystem and has sufficient audience among attendees. And then besides that, it's hard to see, but there's a nominate for special consideration. So if you get rejected in one of these areas, whether, it's like there's the X, the caution, and then the green. If you get the caution or if you get an X, somebody can override that and say, even though I gave them a red or I gave them a caution, we should still push this forward. So that's so they can push it forward through the nominate with special consideration. Now, I point this out in particular because I think it's really important, because this is something, a list you can have someone check you on when it comes to any conference, not just PyCon. And basically just submit it to folks. And you can actually create like a little Google form and say, tell me if this outline sounds achievable for a 20-minute talk, a 40-minute talk, because those are going to be different things. Tell me if this is clearly written and articulate. And your friends can submit an anonymous form so they can be brutal, and it doesn't matter. They don't feel like they have to hurt your feelings. So I love that little format. So after they get through that, and I shared this link with the organizers, so if you want to check it out later. After we get through that, there's a batch review process where we sort of clump together the talks by topic area. And then, so if there are, let's say, are 20 talks on serverless applications, then we say, okay, what do each of these 20 do? And how do they rank against each other? So another good exercise for you to do as you're thinking about a topic is look at, consider your topic, and then go and try to find talks that have been done on that topic before or similar to it. So you can say, how am I going to make my talk different? And maybe your talk is similar or the same. That's okay. As long as, it's sort of been done, there's some sort of separation between you and that other talk. Maybe it's a couple of years. That person could be done doing that talk, so on and so forth. But make sure you check what's out there, because this is something I did not learn for a very long time, and I wish I'd known it before. And that is, speakers will reuse their talks. And so if a talk exists before, it could get submitted again, and then you're going up against that talk, and you're going up against that person who has experience in that talk as well. So you want to try to make yours stand out. Now, I'm going to emphasize the... and for the last thing I'm going to emphasize is the actual using your talks again. So there's a list of conferences that are open. I pulled up some just to plant some seeds. Gotham Go, if you do Golang. Nation.js, which is actually local in DC. Tapia is now open. Grace Hopper, of course. SciPy, and SciPy is interesting because it has all these fun mini symposiums. So if you are a subject matter expert and less of a programmer, when I say less of a programmer, let me rephrase that, that you consider yourself more of like a scientist and not necessarily a programmer by trade. That doesn't make you less of a programmer, though. And then, of course, the data intelligence one that I showed earlier. All conferences have different requirements for their submissions. Grace Hopper does 1 to 2 pages with citations. That can seem overwhelming. It's not. But like PyCon does title, abstract, and outline. And so those are 2 completely different formats. You also have talks that might be 20 minutes. You have talks that might be 40 minutes. Rare is that you get a talk for an hour. And so really consider the content that you're putting together, but also know you can take the same talk and extend it and shorten it and use it at different conferences at different times. And it's a really great way, like just submit everywhere, submit often. And, refine that talk that you want to give and try to make it better every single time. I think I just learned that 2 years ago, but I had been talking for 4 years. And every time I'd submit, I'd be like, I need to come up with this great new idea. And then I had to come up with great new slides. And I was just burning myself out. And I ended up giving this talk, I think in 2016, called something like user-centered open source. So making your open source project user-centered. But then I gave it inside some companies, and so they weren't necessarily doing open source, so then I changed it user-centered inner source to direct it at the audience. And I ended up giving the talk like 6 times, and it was really great because by the end, it was a really great talk, and I had like 6 different versions of it, and it was never starting from scratch every time. It was just building off of what I had done before. So like once you get past that first talk, the second talk should be so easy.